So, welcome everybody. Well, you know me, but then I'd like to introduce, first to complete the show about the short thesis written in the brief of the presentation, which very well synthesizes who I am and where I'm coming from. I provocatively use the word "my landscape" because I, let's say, approach this theme from starting as an architect, where everyone, or at least all the architects, always say "my building, my space, my." This is sort of an idea of possession of space, and I will discuss this during the whole story, and especially at the end. So. I'm not going to start immediately with where I'm coming from, but I would like to show you an exhibition that I've done during my studies when I was in the Netherlands. And it was an exhibition of 4,000 terracotta pots that I received from a firm. And it was the title of this exhibition was the different terms used in landscape. And the goal of that was to, because I investigated through the installation, but also several projects I've done during that year of study, how is changing our relationship to nature, and also to make more clear, the work was focusing on the perception and the experience of nature through technological mediation. So then, in that sense, the exhibition shows by using all these terracotta pots, all this new interpretation of landscape and the perception of landscape. But how did it start? Well, this is where I come from. These are my two landscapes that I'm related to. Or start with. The first one, I would say it's the winter landscape, because I was living in the city of Reggio Calabria, and the summertime was going 70 miles more or less from the city where I was spending the summer vacation. Two very different landscapes. They are in south of Italy, and well, the first one, it's a city facing the sea with a big long waterfront. It's 2 miles long waterfront. It's basically a botanical garden, and the view is the islands, the Sicily. So it's very interesting place to me, or at least was interested in. And university was also in the same city. So I was studying architecture in the same city, doing project in the same place. And this, some of those characteristics is big waterfronts and those, let's say, big squares within the urban fabric of the city structure, and start to get through that period also what is the idea of infrastructure, public space, relationship between water and green and built area. So all this is sort of influence, interested me. I was trying to work with, but not really much conscious of that. And so these are, what I call these botanical gardens. All this 3 miles long waterfronts. It's a very, let's say, lived place, but also very, how do you say? Sorry, there's another image. It's a very constructed space. And that's also something that started also to interest me, but also annoy me. I had sort of this hitchy question that I want to know. Anyway, I had no answer. Another characteristic before getting to that, it's all the waterfront is planned in a way that at the end of each street, the city is organized, squares. It was destroyed by the earthquake in the beginning of 900. And the orientation of the city and the streets is done that you get wind from the sea in order to avoid, for sanitation issue. And at the end of each street, there is always a tree, which can be palm tree or other references. So that's, it's a characteristic that was interesting, but nobody was even teaching at the university in architecture all these characteristics. It was a personal discovery and interested on that. But also city, which has also a lot of problem in terms of water issue. You see the blue line are existing rivers called dry rivers, because they are dry during the summertime, and during the winter there's a large amount of water, creating also sort of floods. And what they've done in the city urban parts, they have basically covered this river, which is becoming a road on top. And so with the consequent issue. So it's another infrastructure that adds to my knowledge and to my curiosity. Well, and that's the other landscape that was familiar to me. I was going, every summer was my summer destination. My parents had a house there, so it's totally different landscape. Surviving to the dry, the heat. You can see all these images. Also, very much dealing with the water, the topography, but the underwater landscape. And definitely, I was passionate for this type of plants that survive to the heat and the resistance, the year by year, there. And still, every year when I go in this place, for me, is this summer. Without going to the place, it's like I haven't had any summer. And I have a picture of this picture of every year. So I monitor that profile, and I know that year happened a fire, next year something else. So I have a record. So it's a sort of a big memory and important reference in my knowledge, but in my vision of the place. And but I had no idea about this two landscape, how to work with. The architecture still teaching was very focused on the building, and then this again, I was looking for something to just give me a clue, until a day that I was in a bookshop and I saw this book, tiny. You see, it's very worn. Which for me, opened a big world of knowledge. So here all start my passion for the landscape. And then I use the terms in a very broad term, but then it opened, gave me some keys to read what the environment around me, the differences, the relationship, how people behave into the space, how we relate inside the outside. So it's it open up enormous vocabulary of knowledge which was completely hidden to me, and especially this it's one of those famous project or beginning project from Lawrence. I believe you all know Lawrence Alprin, right? Hopefully, okay. So then, which was a collaboration, this project was a collaboration of architects and landscape architects. And, I was impressed by all those, the beautiful, not beautiful itself, but the intensity of a message that a sketch could communicate. And if you could go through all these details of text, give such a rich information, not only how to do, but how do you experience the space. So for me, these tiny drawings I was photocopying and enlarging 3 times to read, hoping to read and to get more and more to that knowledge. So this is one of the project, and then the realized project still, was a black and white book. So color is now you are experiencing. I had no clue about color. I could imagine was wood, but I was not sure. So I started understanding, this relationship inside, outside, those details. How is the position of a person sitting in that place? What does it look at? How do you experience that enclosure? How you experience the transition of space? So for me, every single space I was just going back and forward to understand how I can translate this in my designing architecture. I was studying still architecture. So it was a layer of knowledge which I did not have. Nobody was teaching to me. And said, okay, there's a chance. I have to do self-studies. And then sketching, this is definitely a fantastic sketch, but how to sketch and grab landscape, read the landscape. What does it mean a color when you make a sketch? So that's again a reference. Yeah, that's a square. You know, there also you know. Well, as you saw in my previous, in the beginning of the show, we talked about the city. You know, water was an important element, talking about waterfront. So this approach to water was also amazing to me, because it's about you know, joy of water, but also there is a danger of height, and how people freely move between danger and joy and safety. So doing this, I said, okay, well, I'm getting some tools, but it's not yet there. And I kept discovering more, looking for more books. And these are two books still for me are important. So I would say I can summarize in three key books of my learning and history, and which I still bring back, you know, in the study. And although they are old, they're still valid book. So this, the one is more about it's an atlas of the European garden. I want to know about the concept of garden. And this book was started provided through the history, through the different nations or European countries, those relationships, and what does it mean garden concept, how it evolved, what is the effect of time through how it evolves over time. And then the other one was about reading a landscape. Was about more the agricultural landscape. It's an old book from 1920, but it's the first book that introduced the word agrarian landscapes and provide a way of reading the layers within the landscape. So I needed that tool. So this book provided me that information, and I decided, okay, now it's time to travel. I can say I've been very lucky because my father was also in the railway system, and I had free tickets in Europe. So I could go anywhere I wanted. Start from, let's say, Italy. And this is now part of the beginning of my journey. At beginning, it just was like, okay, I think this is good, it's close, and go. I didn't have really any organization structure, but I can say, never mind. And from all of this, I got so much experience, and only afterwards you just sync all this information and you meet with each other. So that was it's an island built completely. This is more playing the bottom with the water and building up those creature that a special meaning within historic gardens. Or this idea of a structure that you saw, so part of those infrastructure so in the city. So for me, also going to places was somehow recalling those elements that I had in my, let's say, city landscape or more outside landscape. And one of these, which I really suggest to go whenever you go to Europe, is to visit Villa Adriana, which is not a building, it's a city, it's a landscape. It's hard to define, but all the components that you are interested in the environment, you find in this huge extension of a place. It's very close to Rome, easy to reach, but you should spend a day minimum sketching, not only just walking, sketching there. There's so much to learn about integration of architectural landscape, blurring inside, outside, water, green, transparencies, transition, reflection. No, there's endless amount of words that you can use as inspiration. And the top one, it's a villa close to that, you can say, where all is about water and the joy of water. So again, you see all these elements that you saw in the first landscape talking about the city, and the other one comes back and also guides somehow my decision to move, to visit, to learn about places. We somehow use the same components which I was interested on. So I started to look for agrarian landscape. I was traveling in north of Italy, but then this experience more the green one, the very a rich and productive landscape, but also the one which is more abundant, also dry. So all those different, you can call those extreme, but if you know about physics, extreme actually attract each other. They are not opposite. So that's for me always spanning between these two extremes was a special interest and direction that I took until I moved. Say, okay, it's part of the journey. This was a journey. Moved to another country. I graduated in architecture, and I was there, doing some also practice, collaborating with some colleagues, but it was not enough. I thought, okay, I know, but there is something which really interests me, and this is with aspect of water, but also the idea of time, change. Processes, and I couldn't get in the place where I went. So the Netherlands was one of the directions, and moved to this country where just extremely, let's say, dense, but also where infrastructure it's highly intersect each other. You have a canal, you have a road, you have some parts of the country are even airplane landing. It's just crossing one of the streets. So this infrastructure is so cramped, but because the country is very small, so there's no space that can be left to no development. And so that's for me also was the beginning. Wherever you move, there's something else. So where is the space to breathe? How do I handle that? So try to understand what is the let's say the transition from certain type of experience of space. Well, dealing as also as extreme to these two aspects. The one, the very organized landscape, which is, where the country is about. As you might know, it's under the water level, so the control of the land, it's basically the base. There's nothing that can be done without approval of from to the different levels of authorities. But then on the other hand, you have the other extreme, I call, where they have the dunes, the free land. Although the dunes are extremely functional to the place, they help to filter the water, the drinking water. So there is also an hidden functional, let's say, play beneath this, let's say, wild landscape, as it might look like. So these two are, again, there are two extremes that interest me. And I can say also in that type of landscape, I could recognize something that you saw in the beginning of the two reference landscape. The softness, the movement, the scent, in a way, was part of this background history. And so another important thing for me was also experiencing wind.
I didn't
Not
get that.
In the city where
Could you
I
try
come
again?
From, rain or not wind, but the intensity of the wind experience in the Netherlands, it's really unique. When you get cold yellow, you better stay inside. You might know the landscape architect West 8. It's the west wind, which is the strongest wind in the Netherlands, and definitely that is the one just wipes out things. So learning to also to design with a natural element that deals with the wind. So what is the experience of being in between or moving through nature that is exposed to that pressure, which is flexible, which is also, let's say, going with the wind and not reacting to the wind. So this idea of working with, instead of just placing elements, which in my previous education of especially architecture, the idea of a fixed volume staying forever, start to shake. and then combined with this idea that just things develop and change over time. So of course the water came back, as a start. Water in a different scale. This is learning the extreme also of water as an opportunity or in emergency case. This is in the south of the Delta of the Netherlands. Let's say the time I've been there, almost 2 times it was a national emergency for water, because the country, it's basically the delta of the European rivers. And with extreme water, also the fact that within the bigger cities like Paris or Germany and so on, they keep narrowing down the profile of the rivers, and therefore the way the water arrives to the Netherlands is extremely strong and start to wipe out the land, and therefore they were created a sort of a natural recreational area as large spaces where to accommodate overflow water in order to, let's say, reduce the speed of water and then allow the slow flow. And this is one of those areas. So this is one of the experience, and then this is the second one. So these are the effects. So yeah, incredible. The dike and the survival, but it's all planned. And that's the amazing things, if you see this image, it's really scary, but everything was well planned. You open the dike, and at a certain point, just get the level, where to stop. And obviously we participated even to all those rescue exercise in an emergency case. So again, this part of water came back to my mind, and I started to experiment. So doing sketches. It's not about beautiful sketch, not beautiful sketch. Sketch as a tool to grasp the space around you, to remember your space, to fix what are those important elements of the space that you are experiencing, you are seeing, you remember. So this is one of those sketches, which recalls the city where I come from. The smoking mountains is the Etna volcano, which is in front of the city where I'm coming. And start also to design. Had the opportunity while I was in the Netherlands to study in a school where a teacher, and I can really be grateful to him, was always push me beyond my comfort zone. He knew my interest, but I was not there to make that step, to enlarge my sketches, to get more familiar with things that were not known. And with him, I tried, said, okay, if I failed, what's wrong? Still I will learn something. So I started to make a project on a specific area, making models, start to test the things about time changes, and so on. I'm not going into detail to that. These are part of those studies, learning about layers, intersect layers in space, topography, and so on. And actually, I present this project, and it was for a competition, and I got a prize for the competition. So for me, it was a proof. You see, you can try, you can succeed, but still, the prize was an incentive too, but doesn't mean that if you don't win a prize, you are losing. And then I decided to continue this interest between architecture and landscape, and working to the two, also doing a PhD. One of the professors that was also pushing me in that study, said, okay, I can be your supervisor, and I continue. And so the topic of evolution, change, adaptation, time, processes was part of that research. And again, also I want always to experiment with a specific case, test with a real situation, and make a model of this changing experience and time. Then you might be sound surprised, but it was a surprise to me. After 10 years that I had that book in hands, I was a fellowship at Cornell University. I applied and it was the Lawrence Altman Fellowship. So I just, see the circle close in a way. And then I had a chance to meet him, to visit. I was in San Francisco. I spent one full day with him talking about my experience, the learning from his book, his work. And so can you imagine, for me it was not touching the ground that day. It was like, it was amazing. So, again, if you have a wish, you want to know and you are really willing to discover, there's no line that says that you should stop there. Go for that. Failure are also part of the process and they are success in a way. So after 10 years, I really enjoyed. So I'm getting to the last few slides. So this is sort of a collection of elements. You can say memory, but for me more just, if I close my eyes, what comes to my mind. That's the way I collage all of them. And so you can see, the impression of the nature that I had of this dry river, this sort of the floating, the hidden space beneath the water, the idea of infrastructure. And now this somehow I grabbed by being in another country. And all this created sort of a palette of from the language that I use also in design. All my work as a practitioner, also teaching with students, some colleagues really recognize that. It's hard for myself to recognize, but I've been, sort of scrutinized on that and say, that's where basically all your knowledge come back, and knowledge and passion, memory, it becomes, again, part of the tools of your or your dictionary when you make design. So to conclude. So that was the beginning. So learning from changes, learning from an approach to nature, and all this learning make really a big change to me, saying from my landscape to our landscapes. That's all. Any question? Yes, please.
It's really cool that you got to spend the day with Lawrence Altman. Was there anything that you took away from your conversations with him that stuck? Like any advice or anything that he said that just always stuck with you?
So many things. Can you mention? I mean, I think the one thing which maybe it's the most important is just really to push really beyond my boundaries, really to go forward, to it really encouraged me because I was telling him all my fear and mistakes, and it really was turning around that aspect. And then I think was for me more than detail of learning those aspects, because he showed me project things. Sure, that's really enriched me. But the main learning is that, and I keep carrying with me, and there's no way to just go move on. Anything else?
Can you go back to one of your images where there's two buildings floating and the surroundings covered by water?
Which one?
That one.
This one?
Yes. Is that a boat down there? Is that water?
Yes. Yeah.
So you were saying that this was built this way, they knew this would happen?
Yeah, it's a big water basin, basically. If you're interested, there's I have maps of the entire area, which is a natural park, and you can visit in certain time of the year, because obviously it's it's dry, but it's that ground prepared for receiving the amount of water. So looking forward to bring all of you somewhere there, if you like, sometime. Yes.
Is it hard to detach from the architecture
architecture background and not see the landscape as like how we should normally see it as more smooth, more not that structured, not that kind of design.
I wouldn't say detached. Maybe I would say, it's another layer that I put on top, in between. I don't know. I cannot say anymore. For me, it was just a portion of understanding the environment. So it's never complete. So by working on that side, just it became one. So there's no detachment. It's really combining understanding and perceiving through different lenses, which make the complete understanding to my vision about the environment.
Why I'm asking because I also have an architecture background, but it's always hard for me not to be harsh to the landscape when I design. I feel like I am the structural of whatever I design, and it takes me a while to know that I can be.
I think for me, sketching was an important tool to get the freedom and the sort of sense of liberation by the control of architecture. And beside this stage, I think sketching always welcome. It's your, I say to the students, the idea comes from here, go through and get to the end and then deposit on a paper. So that process of sketching, it's translating your not only idea but what you see and what you remember, and then comes through that.
In the presentation, you showed some old sources and how it shapes your defining the landscape and how it becomes landscape architecture. And it has a very rich sketches and
which one
drawings.
you mean? One of the sketches?
The old books you started learning from.
Which one? Sorry.
In the beginning of the presentation.
Okay.
So
This one?
My question is, how you compare the old sources for learning landscape architecture with the new tools and softwares that currently exist now, and just a comparison between the old sources and how it defines our cities and the new sources for learning.
Yeah. Well, in a way, the way you're posing this is like before and after. I don't think it's before and after. It's updating. So I think with the before, you need to have that to use. I mean, the new technology is a tool, but if you don't have the methods, you cannot apply the tool. So if you, through that book, for me was providing a way of understanding the landscape from a cultural viewpoint, archaeological viewpoint, history, art, and so on. So these are criteria that you must have. Then you apply the way of learning. Maybe before was by mapping or reading out the papers, and you nowadays use different tools. But it's updating your way of reading, but you have to know how to read. So, I'm not that knowledge in all those technology, and I have to admit my limits. But I know that they can support me, and then when I provide or collaborate with someone, I can give that hints from what I would want to know, and then I get support how I can do that. So it's evolving. It's not before and after. So what is your next journey?
I've got one question I can throw you to close it out. Maybe gone from really radically different, like actual material of landscape, from this kind of rocky, roady, stone and soil of the Mediterranean to the really tightly controlled, moist but not moist soil of the Netherlands.
Yeah, the Dutch. Yeah.
How did you kind of grapple with that as a designer?
Well, I hated the environment at the beginning. No, it was raining, windy, horizontal raining. It really took me some time to get used to the environment. I also miss references. For example, let's say Mediterranean landscape, the palm tree, hide the vertical element reference. Suddenly you have, everything is just low, moving with the wind. So all these references are gone. Even the mountains. Yeah, there are no mountains. So but you start to after a while, after rejecting, because I think it's maybe part of our human behavior. You don't know and you hate, and then slowly you start to understand what is the beauty of that, and how you can build on. Then I start to realize, there's a little difference, make change, and so it has a value. But before I couldn't see, it was flat, zero. So it's more than that. I could see in this horizontal landscape, the way also nature was layered. The different type of organization of the landscape, and of those rooms within the landscape, which at a glance, you think, okay, it's flat. No, but slowly you get through these filters, and it takes time. So that's, I think, the moment you start to understand that, you start also to absorb and see the beauty of one of the other, and maybe it becomes, part of your understanding and approaching to the things in the sign.
It's a lot like learning a new language.
Yeah, yeah.
Before you know the language, it's just noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Irene.
My pleasure.